So the reason that I put that on there today about war was because of what's happening in Europe this week, which is so sad. Violence to me is never the answer. It's so sad that people go in and kill each other and invade and take over by physical power. I know it's something that we've done throughout our history as humans, but it's so sad to see and to hear, and I'm so sorry for anybody that is in that situation. It's so sad. So what's the perspective of non-duality on war? So first of all, I think we need to decipher what non-duality is. So I shall begin with what non-duality is. So when we are born, we believe that's when we begin, when we're born, when we pop out of the mother's vagina. I'm sure that's going to get me flagged for just saying vagina. Yeah. So when we pop out of the woman's private parts, we tend to think that that's when we began to exist. That's when this body began to exist. Or maybe the body, you could say, began to exist when the mum and dad bonked and the egg was fertilized. But until that point, that baby is dependent on the mother's body and growing from the mother body. So when it's ejected, it's that it comes into its own being in this world of apparent individuality. And that's so beautiful. I mean, it's just a miracle that that happens. But that's not really when you began. That's when that form began, or seemingly began, and came into appearance. So you could say it's like Lego. So say if you're building a Lego construction, you have all the pieces to the Lego prior to making the construction, and then when you put it together, you make the construction out of one of the, and part of it is creating a little Lego person, and you put all these bits together, and then there's suddenly a Lego person. And that's when that apparent Lego person began. So that could be the birth of them, but it's not when the Lego began. The Lego began prior to that, and that's the same as life. In both ways, as consciousness and as atoms. If you take it down to our smallest parts, like beyond atoms, to quarks, or to the smallest particle that we can find, you is not when they began. It's very egotistical. I am the beginning of something. You is another formation. And then from the perspective of consciousness, it's the same. Because from the perspective of consciousness, consciousness always is. It's inseparable from life. It is the knowing of all things. So this life instantaneously comes with this knowing. It's right here, this knowing, like boom, 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 right here. There's no denying it. There is a knowing here, not an intellectual knowing. That comes and goes, and we change our mind all the time, and our intellect is expanding and growing and learning more things. But from the perspective of perception, this knowing, this instantaneous recognition, that always is. In order for there to be things, there has to be recognition. So again, we go back to that quote that I said last week that's stuck in my brain. If the tree in the forest falls and there's no one around to hear it, does it make a sound? Like, does this exist if there is no perception? Well, of course it does, Lisa. It's still here. It's matter. If there's no perception, of course it's here. It's here. But who perceives it? So how can it exist? Well, it's here without anybody perceiving it, so it doesn't exist. Well, yes, because it's here without anybody perceiving it. Round and round we go. Round and round we go. Round and round we go. It's exciting, eh? So there is this perception that happens instantaneously and always is, and that's there prior to you being born. The world doesn't start when you are born, even though the person is like, yes, it does, I'm the center of the world. That's like a 2-3-year-old way of thinking. It's not true. Life was there prior to it. And in the end, this life is so all-encompassing and miraculous. It doesn't have prior and after. It just has right now. We never have prior or after, before or after. We always only have this moment that's intrinsic to this watching. It's so amazing. It's instantaneously here. And that's the freedom of it. Like going back to who you are, remembering who you are. The freedom is the remembering of it being right here, right now, and free. There is no past, there is no future, there's only this nowness, and that is consciousness, is that it's empty and full simultaneously. It doesn't contain past, or it doesn't run in the past and future, but that appears in it. The appearance of past and future, like we exist in a world that's apparent cause and effect and time, but that's not the truth of it. That's just what us as humans use to navigate this miraculous, wondrous, undefinable thing called life. And this recognition, which is like an energetic shift, only happens here, now, in this. Here, now. It can only ever happen here. It's not really something that happens to you and time-bound, because who is this you that imagines going through time? That's an appearance that we can attribute to the character of the body, but it's not who's experiencing. It's not the experiencer. The experiencer is timeless. It's instantaneous. It's free. It contains nothing. It's empty. And that is what's experiencing now. And it's not limited to the body. It's not finite. It is infinite. And yet we can't even properly call it infinite, because that still has a finite, an opposite. It is even beyond that. But you can't find it. That's what I'm trying to say. You can't say, okay, there is consciousness. It is a subject looking at the world. The consciousness is the things, which means that who you are right now, that which is experiencing now, is all things. Is all things. It's not separate. And that's the essence. And that's what all humans have forgotten, or 99.99999%. They've forgotten that who they are is the experiencer, which is life, which is non-separation, which is non-dual. And they believe that they are something finite called a soul or a person that exists inside this body, and then they suffer because they lose connection with that which is free. And then they try to find that freedom in pleasure and pain. So then they become like one of those hamsters running around in the ball, like trying to find freedom in pleasure and avoiding pain, which is an impossibility. And waking up is not you becoming a perfect person. Waking up is that remembering of the essence, and then that breaking of pleasure is my freedom, pain is my cage. But you're still going to have all your habits that your parents taught you. You're still going to have your pain in the assness. It doesn't make you a superhero. That's what people like to believe. I mean, I certainly did. When I first got into this, I was being told, you know, you could walk through walls, you know, you could travel back in time and listen to a Buddha's sermon, the Buddha's sermon. You know, you're like Jesus effing Christ. You were. You were like the savior of the planet. You were like the superior being. The best person in the world. You know, it was like a fantastic dream. And then boop, you realize it's not that. You're still your same freaking pain in the ass human who has great qualities and can be a real stickler at points. But there isn't this attachment to pleasure is freedom and pain is cage. That is your illusion. Your freedom is always this moment. Doesn't mean that you don't like 5-star hotels as opposed to, you know, living with cockroaches and rats and mold. It's just that the 5-star doesn't give you freedom, and the rats and the mold and the cockroaches don't give you a cage. That's pain and pleasure. That is painful, that is pleasurable, although 5-star hotels can be painful too. Went to this nice hotel in Paris recently and had carpet on the walls, and I had a bit of a reaction to this. My hay fever has been really good since I've been doing the Wim Hof, but I was like, my nose was streaming, and I think it's because there's most probably dust mites in the carpets on the walls, but it's super posh. Having carpets on the walls in England is really, you know, up there with the poshness. But that was so much. Everything was carpeted. Maybe the ceiling wasn't. I don't think it was 5-star though, but I think it was pretty, you know, high. Right in the center of Paris. So freedom is this uncontainable moment, this instantaneousness of what is. It is right here. Not the end of emotions, not the end of liking things and disliking things, not the end of your conditioning, though conditioning can get more refined and settled and open. Like the seeking, you know, can really exacerbate the emotions or deaden them. So then what's non-duality's relationship to war? So in the end, this moment doesn't care if it's at peace or war, not because it doesn't care like we imagine it as humans, like, oh, I don't care if that person's at war, F them. Not like that. In the sense that it can't care. Consciousness can't care. It can't not care or carry, actually. It can't have emotions. Emotions can be produced in the human, but non-duality, which is all things, can't have one particular emotion, because then it would be subject-object again. It creates all different emotions, but intrinsically in itself, it's non-dual. It's not two, so it wouldn't have an emotion about something. So to life, like, so there can be bombing. I actually was in a situation when I was younger where I worked in the West Bank, and I experienced like rubber gunfire, and I actually experienced gunfire that wasn't rubber as well, and like explosions, like all types of things. It wasn't a war zone, but there was lots of conflict between the Israeli army and the Palestinian people. Yeah, especially back then in the beginning of the 2000s. And I remember just having one of these experiences where there was like there was what's that called? Tear gas being set off. And I think there were rubber bullets as well, and people were laying around cars and behind things, and I was laying behind a car, and the sunlight was coming through the smoke. And even though there was fear and disorientation and discomfort, there was also this sense of stillness, like it was all being embraced. And that's the same, like in this terrible situation, life is also totally embracing everything. When it's not looked through subject-object and a person that is repulsed by it, non-duality is holding death, destruction, growth, joy, beauty. It's holding all of it. It's containing all of it without any judgment. It is all of it, you could say. It loves no matter what. It's there. I also had another experience, and I told this, I think, many times, so if you've heard it before. Like, I remember after this awakening, like coming across a dog that was dying in Bali, and it was hairs falling out, and it was skinny, and it was in all types of pain. And I was having one of these experiences where I was so expanded I couldn't connect to any humanness in Lisa, which isn't practical. You can't really function like that. But I just looked at it, and I just had such a sense of how it was embraced in absolute love. In essence, like God is holding every part of it. Like, so the human normally projects onto it, you know, the suffering, the pain, the alienation, the loneliness. And that's not a problem, that's part of being human. But from the perspective of life, like God was in every movement, and there was no aloneness, there was no negativity, it was just held in love. Yeah. But as humans, so this consciousness looks through humans, and then the human has feelings. And from a human perspective, like violence, from a human perspective, oh well, I can't really say that because there's so many different human perspectives. But normally when you've been through non-duality and you've had these awakenings, you've really got to like the source of the ego in many ways. And violence is seen as a, you know, like a really unnecessary action. Like, so from my perspective, and I can't say if that's the same for everybody's, but from my perspective, there is this consciousness that's looking through that loves everything. So the war, the not war. But then on the human perspective, the ideal is to expand towards love in all areas of life, and violence against each other doesn't feel like an expansion, it feels like a contraction. So it doesn't feel like open movement, it feels like very closed and suffering movement. But you know, I don't know really, like, because I've not had my country invaded and I don't know what that will feel like, and maybe violence and defense would come out here, but in general it feels very contractive, and I feel like when you have these awakenings, then everything wants to open and be open and expand everything. Like the human wants to be in expansive mode. It's not always possible. Like I have interactions that feel contractive, but I feel like there's an energy that wants to expand and open even those. Like to be in a natural flow, and to be in your natural flow is like going towards positivity and connection and intimacy and love and growth, all these, and inspiration and creativity. And yeah, these other things come up, but they're not seen as like your flow. Like, so to go towards violence isn't seen as a flow. Like it might happen sometimes, like I might get really angry about something, but on reflection and when that emotion calms down, the urge is to open that anger, to expand it into love and openness. Yeah, I don't always know if I make sense, but you can ask questions now, and then I can get a sense of what's making sense and not making sense. Hi Lisa, a war, who is killing who? Who is going to push the button to launch, I presume not laugh, a nuclear weapon, launch a nuclear weapon? To me, it doesn't matter if it's unconscious or conscious. To me, it's a disaster. Thanks. Yeah, to you, on the human level, it is a disaster. For sure, Joss. I would agree. Is so sad what's happening to Ukrainian people. I don't think there's going to be a nuclear war currently. I think that's why no one goes to help Ukraine. I mean, like help as in fight with them, because it knows that if they do, it'll start a World War III. But yeah, I think it's so sad. But to the ultimate perspective, it's not. So there's a part in you where that's free, where everything's free. But on the human level, it's a tragedy. I agree. Thanks, Joss. I just have to go back to the question to remember what it is, even though I only read it a couple of moments ago. Yeah, so do you mean this concept as in like law of attraction, that if there is war inside, then there will be war externally?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, to me the movement.
I have a lot of
Yeah.
Something is very painful. I guess you can just feel it. I didn't have an easy life or so. I have had many difficulties, and oftentimes I felt like like there was no hope anymore. And then I had to find something, and then I started to work on myself, and I realized I'm a very creative person. I'm an artist, and I'm a musician actually. So
nice.
I like to get lost in music, and then when I feel that, I feel good.
Yeah,
But yeah, my life seems sometimes so difficult that I just don't know what to
yeah,
do.
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I can understand. I'm sorry that that happens, and it's it's indicative, you know, when you've had difficult experiences, then the unconscious can then can carry on producing difficult experiences, and there can be lots of emotions and suppressions that arise. So that's the nature of it. But back to the question about war. So, so if you have a war inside, like if that then manifests externally, that's such a complex question. I do feel like the way in which you see life, so the way in which your unconscious is creating your thoughts that are conscious, and creating your needs and wants that become conscious, then directs you in the way in which your unconscious feels. So if you have an unconscious thought and feeling of being victim, then you'll often search out a predator. It's not your fault, it's nobody's fault, it's just what manifests
Yeah.
because that's the feeling. And it's so obvious when you look at trauma as to how it happens, because firstly you want to heal that, so you want to heal that victim sense, so you have to find the perpetrator to heal it. Secondly, it's often a pattern that's happened in childhood, so you've been traumatized in childhood, you've had predators, and so then there is ironically a feeling safe with that predator character. And then thirdly, there is thoughts where lots of thoughts of feeling unsafe and feeling not good enough, and feeling like you deserve it. And so then there is a moving towards it as well. But these are, again, very unconscious. And then as you become more conscious of these thoughts, then you can begin to stop it and redirect that energy. So I really can understand the teaching of law of attraction, but I don't think it's as simple as like our desires and then a war manifests. Like, it's way more complicated than that. And I can see truth in law of attraction, and I can see beauty in it, but I also feel like it's a lot more complicated and it's not as simple as
Yes.
what it sounds. But I also can see like a collective consciousness as well. Like there is like a collective consciousness that manifests stuff, and we've been through like lots of frustration and restrictions over the last 2 years, so I can see that there's most probably unrest in societies that's beginning to manifest. Yeah. But I wouldn't say that because you're experiencing pain inside that you're creating a war externally. I don't quite see it like that. I know like law of attraction or Course in Miracles sort of kind of imply that, but I wouldn't say that. I would say that it's way more complicated, the movement of life, than that.
Yeah. My father was a child of war. He was very old. It was very, sometimes he had spontaneous crying or trauma coming up, and then I would see the real person. Also, I felt like I would see the real person inside of him, and most of the time I didn't. So it was very difficult relationship. Maybe that is somehow actually the root of this happening.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be. Like on that side of things, there's so many things that you can explore and do. Like on my website, I have a reference page of loads of books and different teachers that you can explore, which help you look at these types of things. And it can take years to really understand and conceptualize the person, like, and really work through this stuff and begin to change the behaviors and the patterns. And really my expertise are in that which is beyond the patterns, even though I think it's great to look at, and I really advise people to do. Like, to me, the true freedom is the recognition of non-duality. that who's looking out of your eyes now is not bound to duality. It's not a thought, a feeling, an idea, a name, a behavior, your past, your future, what you own, what you don't own, your education, your job, your marital status, your children. It's nothing to do with something in the flow. So there is a freedom now which is experiencing that's beyond all of that. And that's always there in every moment. And the recognition of this can really help in trauma recovery and working on the personal level. The recognition that who you are is beyond you. That which is experiencing now is totally free and expansive and in all things and no thing. It's not a person that recognizes this. It's not a mind that recognizes this. But yet it's recognized instantaneously because it is that which is conscious.
Mm-hmm.
It's that which is experiencing now. Do you have a sense of that?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I actually do. Sometimes I feel so free, but I have those moments when now the dog is answering.
Yeah.
My relationship, for example, with my son, he is sleeping right now. He is 11, and it's a very nice relationship. And I really can't say that I feel abused by him, or he wouldn't say that he would feel bad around me or something. That is very I'm improving on that, and I see that when I make improvement and when I work with myself, that affects him directly.
Totally,
I have these moments where I totally I'm also able to talk people out of their pain, because there's one ability of mine, and that I've experienced non-duality. And that often makes people believe that there's nothing wrong, everything's fine with you. Why are you complaining about stuff? And oftentimes I really don't feel understood. I think this is one of my basic need is to feel understood, and most of the times I don't. And I know probably that I am doing that, but I'm trying to find my way out also with a therapist and together, but
and I think it's something that will evolve more and more. So the more there's a conceptualization around it and understanding where it came from and the dynamics and the way that you communicate with people, that will expand. But your true understanding is always in that which is beyond understanding. Like that is where the true freedom comes from. But I totally validate that understanding is something which is important in the human world. But there's something that's so free right now, always. It's like bursting with freedom, and it doesn't mind if the person has seeking energies or discomforts or not discomforts. It's looking, it's conscious, it's vibrant, and it's alive. This empty looking and this I am. It's so free. It's so empty. It contains nothing. It's like no mind. You could call it like bozo mind. It doesn't have the opposites of being able to think.
Yeah, it's true, and I really want to be there more often. I feel like sometimes always this old stuff from my family, and now my parents died a few years ago, both of them, and my mom died of ovary cancer, and I always feel that my ovaries always they hurt also. Today actually, but sometimes I feel it's hard to break through this stuff.
Totally, and it's maybe something that you will have to work on for life, but it doesn't have to be a hindrance to your freedom. If you've had disturbances in childhood or had lots of trauma, then it might be something that presents itself for life, and it's seeing the freedom that's beyond that, while continuously being prepared to open more and go beyond the trauma or expand more in that trauma or in the personality structure. But the freedom is always in this moment. It's always in no mind. It doesn't mean you don't work on yourself. It doesn't mean that you don't explore these things, but the no mind is the freedom.
That's right.
The stillness that is right here. The emptiness of all things.
Because when I go too deep into those things, I start to feel really, really, really bad, and I don't think that is the right way to to deal with it.
It can be important sometimes as part of the healing process, but it also can be getting stuck in traumas. Nice. But thank you so much for calling in. I so appreciate your openness and your vulnerability, and I wish you all the best with everything.
Thank you. Thank you for calling.
Yeah,
it
pleasure.
was really nice.
Yeah, nice. Thank you.
I feel it now. I feel it it's very easy feeling.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.